What is up, guys? I am back with another video today for you guys. This time we'll be working on the control arms of my Yaris. We'll be replacing the old OEM bushings with some brand new polyurethane bushings from SuperPro. So these are polyurethane, a lot better than the rubber that's currently on the OEM control arms. So I got some small ones for the front with the control arm and another set for the rear. Let's go ahead and start replacing these bushings. So these are the polyurethane bushings from SuperPro. So this is for the smaller side of the control arm. This is the part number for these ones. So you go ahead, open it up. Comes with instructions. Right, so they have instructions for the Yaris. Let's see here. So there's the bushing here, the crush tube, then the original control arm housing. You can see here. So this is for the smaller side, which is over here. And it just has instructions on how to do it. And also in the kit has the installation grease. And then it comes with the kit. It's a kit of 2. So it comes with these polyurethane bushings as well as the crush tube. So a set of 2. So one for each side of the car. That's the smaller bushing for the control arm. And then this is for the bigger bushing on the rear of the control arm. So this is the part number for these bushings. And so let's open it up again. So same thing. Comes with a set of instructions. It says it's for the Toyota Yaris and the Scion. They do have different types of bushings for the bigger one. They have different versions. So the one I have is this one right here, the one on top. They do have other ones where you can offset the caster. So it will basically move the center of the bushing in or out, and then that allows you to adjust the caster about plus or minus 5 degrees. But for me, I just have the regular standard one, which is this one right here. Another set of instructions for the rear. This one also comes with installation grease, same thing. And then this comes with another set. So this is the bigger bushing for the rear. Then there's these smaller ones. So the way this is assembled, according to the picture, so you have this bushing, and then you have these ones right here. This is the crush tube, but this goes inside here, like this, like that, and then this goes in the bottom here, and that slides into the area where it sits. Right. And then this bushing sits inside the control arm. There's 2 sets in here. There's another set on the bottom. So that's for the rear of the control arms. This is the control arm right here. This is the passenger side. So a couple things. So there's a total of 3 bolts. There's one right here. This is for the front. This is towards the front of the car. And then there's the ball joint, which there's a nut up here with a castle nut and a cotter pin up here. That needs to be disconnected. And then another one right back here is a 3rd bolt that needs to be undone. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and remove the cotter pin on this guy. This is for the ball joint for the control arm. So there's a cotter pin here that just needs to be disconnected. Cotter pin. I'm going to take some blaster, PV blaster, just to kind of soak up the castle nut over here on the ball joint, because it's been sitting for a while. This is still the OEM control arm and bushing, or ball joint and everything. So I'm gonna go ahead, put some of this to try and loosen up the joint in between. So while the plaster is soaking on the ball joint over here, I'm gonna go ahead and also apply some on this screw right here, just to try and loosen this one. I'm gonna let that sit. I'm also gonna do the one in the back over here, the one that's over here. Alright, so come back here with a 19mm wrench, go to the top, and just loosen this guy. Then that's the castle nut right there. Alright, so we're gonna remove the lower ball joint. So this is a tool that I rented from my local AutoZone. Basically, the lower ball joint goes over here. Slide this in, and then as you tighten this guy right here, this lever will raise up, and then it'll push down, and then I'll pop out the ball joint. So it's pretty simple. This just slides in just like this, and then you just tighten this. This one is a 15/16 socket. I have right here. This just goes over here, and you just tighten this guy. So just keep tightening until it pops. There we go. Alright, so this is the front of the control arm. So this bolt I need to remove. So this uses a 19mm socket. However, for this one, I'm gonna have to. There's not a lot of space here because this is the oil pan right here. So I'm just using a regular socket, small socket with a breaker bar, and I'm using just a pipe to get a little bit more leverage off this breaker bar. So let's see if this works. This is really tight. Nope, there we go. Yeah. Alright, so you can see this forward control arm bolt is not going to come out because of this oil pan that's in the way. You can see it's hitting it. It's like almost there. So I just tried jacking it up from the bottom of the engine, see if this will give any kind of clearance, but it didn't give enough to pull the bolt out. So what I think I'm gonna have to do is actually go ahead and go in the engine bay and disconnect the motor mounts on the passenger side, just so I can lift this engine up a little bit more, just to pull out the bolt. So this is the engine mount. So there's 3 bolts. There's one back here and another one back here. So I'm going to loosen all 3 so I can jack the engine up and then get to the lower control arm bolt. So these ones use a 14mm. So I'm just going to use a deep socket with an extension. Just I'm gonna go back down under and then jack up the engine again and see what happens. A lot of space underneath. Thing on the back side. This one raised up a little bit too. Alright, so this is the last bolt for the control arm. This is the one on the rear. So this is also a 19mm. So this one I also have it. I'm going to use a pole on the breaker bar just to give it more leverage. Okay, everything's disassembled, so now it's time to remove the control arm. So just gonna watch the lower ball joint, just make sure it's out. You can just pull this. That's those two are removed. And then on the rear side, a little tricky, but there's a little section here that it only comes in, so it's like a C shape. So the bushing only comes up one way, and it comes out the other way. Unfortunately, it's like this. Like the C is angled backwards, so then the bushing only comes out this way. So I have to pull it forward. Just kind of have to wiggle it around. Yeah, it's coming out. Just gotta keep wiggling it. There you go. And it's out. Alright, so here we have my control arms that I removed. So this is the passenger side right here, and then this is the driver's side. Just a quick note on the driver's side, similar to how the passenger side control arm bolt wasn't coming out because it was hitting the oil pan, the driver's side bolt was not coming out because it was hitting the transmission pan. So instead of loosening the engine mount bolts like I did on the passenger side, I was actually lucky enough to just raise the transmission pan just enough to clear the bolt, so I was able to slide it out just enough. So if you are planning on doing this, just know that you only need to remove the passenger side to get enough clearance to pull out the bolt for the passenger side, and on the driver's side control arm bolt. So that's just a quick tip, but yeah, so here we got both the control arms now. So if we take a closer look at the control arms, so this is the forward ones. As you can see, it's kind of rusted out on both sides. Rubber looks okay. I'm going to replace it anyways with the new ones. But the one that's really concerning is actually these ones. So it's kind of hard to tell. But I don't know if you can see. You can see like there's a crack right here, right over here. And it's a little bit on this side too. It's hard to tell without looking at it directly, but yeah, so there is a crack. And so if you try to, I can kind of flex it, but yeah, see, you can kind of see it. And it's a big one too. It goes all the way down. Similar with this side too. Yeah, same on the other side. It's just, I believe it's just a continuation of the crack in this rubber. So obviously that's a bad sign, because when this is mounted, right, so this is mounted like this, right, the wheel is on this side over here, obviously, because the ball joint is here, and so the control arm basically pivots like this. And so it makes sense how this rubber and this piece is not as bad compared to this one, because this one, the bolt comes straight up here, and then obviously it's pivoting around this. So this rubber is prone to cracking, just like it's shown here. So same thing on the passenger side. Passenger side, right, this rubber looks okay, just a little rusted, but obviously, right, see there's another crack on this side over here. And then, yeah, it's just a continuation on this side. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove these old bushings and then replacing with the new one. So here I have a hydraulic press. This is actually my friend's that he was able to let me borrow to do this. So thanks to my friend Ryan for letting me borrow this hydraulic press from him. Here, basically hydraulic press, and then we got a thing on the bottom here. The way we're going to do this is to press out the bearings from the housing. We're going to go ahead and use two different sizes. First we have the bigger one, so this one will actually go on the outside, just like this. And then there's a smaller one that will actually push on the bushing itself. So for this, I'm just going to go like this. And then this will go here. Alright, so we're just going to slowly press. Alright, there we go. Alright, so that's the bushing. I'm doing the other bushing now. So basically I had to find some socket sizes for this. So the bigger one on the bottom that I have over here is an 1/16" to go on the outside of this rubber over here. And then on the top I have a 5/8 socket that will press out this middle one right here. Alright, so I figured I'd try flip it around. So now I have an 1/8" on top and then the 5/8 socket on the bottom, and try to push it from this way instead. Because I think this socket was too big for this section and it was hitting the control arm. So I figured maybe I'd try pushing it from the other way. So I'm going to try. It's working a little bit. It's the next day. So as you saw in the video, I was having a hard time trying to take the smaller bushing out of the control arm. I just couldn't get it out of the housing itself. I turned off the camera because I was struggling, and it wasn't till like later last night that I was able to get it out by using a heat gun and just heating around the housing itself. Yeah, so in the process I ended up destroying the rubber around this bushing. So yeah, this is no longer useful. Like, these are all parts of it in here. But heating up the control arm around the bushing actually made it a lot easier to slide out. So I think that's the thing I'm going to do for the other control arm, is just use a heat gun, heat up the control arm a little bit around the bushing, and it should make it easier to press out. I mean, you've seen this one came out relatively easy, but I think I'll still do the same process of heating it up and pushing it out, just so it makes it easier. We're just going to continue with the other control arms, trying to get the bushings out of the control arms, using a little bit of heat to help make things easier so I'm not struggling. And yeah, let's go. Finished cleaning. There's still a few spots that are like bare metal. Went ahead and cleaned the inside of these, this side, this bearing right here, this bushing where it goes, just so it's clean. Decided to leave this one alone because it's the original paint of the control arm, so I decided not to touch it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just coat it with maybe 1 or 2 layers of paint, just so it protects this metal, just so it doesn't rust. I mean, because it is on the bottom of the car and it is the lowest part, so it does see a lot of water. So I figured, you know what, take some extra protection and precaution to protect the metal and prevent it from rusting out. So I'm gonna go ahead and just mask off this bearing or this bushing area right here, this side right here, and then just do a couple layers of paint. Same thing as this, just mask this off, and then that should be it. Controllers are pretty much done being painted. They're dried out. So I've already gone ahead and installed the bushings on the driver's side already. This is the bigger one, as you can see, and the smaller one. Yeah, I still have the bushing that needs to go on the bottom, but that will come later when I go to install it. But basically this is how it looks like when it's installed. This is the small one, and this is the big one over here. So I'll go ahead and do the passenger side and show how you do it. Basically, put this in here as a guide. This thing right here to basically go around, and then like use this to push down on the bushing. This is the grease that it came with the kit. So you want to lubricate inside here as well as everywhere on here. Just spread it around. And then for me, I'm going to use this, so you want to lubricate this as well. Just kind of spread this around. That will go here. This is mainly just to act as a guide. So set this up here. plate on top here and give it a nice even area for it to push on. And then try and orientate this bushing with the control arm, try to get it as level as you can. There we go. Bushing is pushed in. So then I'm just going to go ahead and remove this crush tube and then put this spacer in between here. So same thing, you want to use more grease on this. More grease the better. Just grease it all. Grease the inside of this. Inside of the bushing. The crush tube is already greased up, so this just slides in. Now we just gotta press this guy back in. So the small bushing will go under here, and then that will be. I'm just gonna leave it off for now because it obviously it slips off. See, it comes off easily. This will go in when I go to install it in the car. Alright, so now we're gonna work on the smaller bushing on this side. A couple things that I found when trying to install the other one on the driver's side. It's easier to use like a threaded rod instead for this one. I tried using it on the hydraulic press, but I just kept getting issues, mainly because this polyurethane bushing is really stiff compared to like the OEM rubber, so it's really hard to kind of flex and get into here. So I found it easiest using a threaded rod. I know they sell those bushing remover kits that you can get on Amazon. I was hoping my local AutoZone would have it for rent, but they didn't, so luckily my friend had a hydraulic press. But you can also use the kit, the bushing remover kit, to aid in this installation. But yeah, I just had these rods, so figured I'd use them. So these are just some random washer spacers that I found laying around. First thing we're going to do is try to put this bushing inside the housing. We're going to go ahead, open up our new grease packet. And then we're going to go ahead and grease the inside of this first. Get as much grease as you can inside, grease it up all the way. What I'm going to do is put this little spacer in, and the bushing is going to go through here. This will go through here, and on this side, this is going to come up here, and we'll just put the threaded nut on this side. Okay. Alright, now from here we're just going to go ahead and use a 15/16 socket. It goes around this nut. A crescent wrench on this side to just hold this down. Just crank it, and then this will push the bushing into the housing. Okay, so I had to switch to the ground to do this because the table wasn't doing it. Wasn't getting enough leverage, so as you can see I got started. I got the one end of it in. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just power through and just try to see if I can get it in. And there you go. It's in. Alright, so now that the bushing is installed, I'm going to go ahead and install the crush tube. I already put some grease on it already. But this basically just slips into here pretty easily. And then I'm going to use a hydraulic press, just to push it in. There we go. So just a little note, it does push this out a little bit. I've tried to compress it back together, but it's just kind of how it is, so yeah. But other than that, it's pretty much ready to go and be installed. Now that the bushing is all installed in control arm, there's a couple more things I had to do before I installed them. First thing was I had to remove the tie rod arm. I did the driver's side already, and trying to install the control arm with this installed made it really difficult, so I went ahead and disconnected the tie rod. Basically just removed the cotter pin and the castle nut that was on top here, and then popped it out, and then now the tie rod's loose, so that's out of the way. And then I also went ahead and cleaned the areas where the control arm will be going in. So I cleaned the bolts already. These are all nice and clean, both the rear and the front. The front bolt is also clean. This is disconnected. It should give us enough room to kind of maneuver and put the control arm in. Alright, so before we go ahead and install the control arm, I'm going to put some more grease on the bottom of this one. I'm just going to make sure this is all clean. Put the grease here. Also, because this spacer is going on the bottom, you want to make sure this is well greased. There's a lot of grease inside. And as well on the bushing as well. Just grease this really good. And that's going to go in there. Put a little bit of grease on top, just so the top is also well lubricated. With these lubricated now, we're going to go ahead and slide this in. Just gotta maneuver it around. So remember, there's a C channel for the back bushing, so you just gotta kind of maneuver into place. There, and then you just push back. It should slide in. I believe that's in. Double check. Just double in there. Yep, pretty sure that's all the way in. Okay, so next thing we want to do is the front bushing. So we're also going to go ahead and lubricate this bushing on both sides. Great. That way it makes it easier to slide in. Alright, and then we just move this out of the way. underneath. Also keep an eye for the ball joint over here. Just gotta keep an eye on that. Just have to maneuver it into place. Just slide it. There we go. And jump and put the ball joint also on top. Alright, so it's in. So now that the back one is in, I'm going to go ahead and install the bolt that belongs in the back. Of course, I'm going to put some anti-seize on the bolt. Just go in. I'm going to do the front. Of course, earlier I jacked up the engine by loosening the engine mount above, and then I jacked up the engine so I can get access to these bolts in the front. But as you can see, it's kind of hard to. Obviously, this control arm is not aligned, so I'm going to use my second jack. I'm just going to jack up the front of the control arm just so that these holes line up. Right, so the bolts going in, same thing, anti-seize. Next, you want to take your torque wrench. I'm going to torque the front ones to 101 foot-pounds. Alright, so we're going to take a torque wrench again and torque this back one to 118 foot-pounds. Alright, so now that those two are torqued, we're going to go ahead and put the casting nut back on this guy. Take our 19mm and tighten the casting nut. And we're going to torque this down to 72 foot-pounds. Alright, then we're going to use a crow's foot 19mm to go ahead and torque this down. And go ahead and install the cotter pin back in. Okay. Alright, last but not least, we're going to go ahead and reconnect the tie rod. Just goes right in. Install the casting nut. 17mm. Tighten this down. Torque wrench. Torque this down to 30 foot-pounds. Last but not least, we can't forget about the engine mount. So, the engine jacked up. I'm just gonna go ahead and move this. Just gotta move the engine and just slide the bolts in place. Then take a 14mm these bolts up. And take a torque wrench and torque these to 38 foot-pounds. And then we can drop the engine. Alright, that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. As you can see, just pretty simple process to install the bushings from SuperPro on the control arms. Probably the hardest thing is actually removing the control arms and pushing out the bearings and reinstalling it. But other than that, pretty straightforward process. And I mean, these bushings are pretty old already. They're like OEM still, and I think I'm about 160,000 miles on my car, so obviously these got to be replaced. So can't say much for these though. These got destroyed in the process, but hopefully that was a helpful video for you guys. I will probably give you an update once I put this car back on the ground and drive it around for a little bit. I do have an upcoming race that I'm hoping to test these out on, so yeah. The only thing I have to do is do an alignment, but that's an easy thing I can do later on. Pretty straightforward process. I've done it before in my previous videos, how to do a string alignment. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to comment down below if you have any questions, and be sure to subscribe for more videos. Alright, catch you in the next one. Shoots!